Early Saturday morning, my roommate Cassie walked over to my bed. "Becca, can I borrow your Costco card? I just need to run in and grab some things." I was too sleep-deprived to think it through. Since a Costco card is just a membership pass and not an actual payment method, I didn't see the harm in it. I mumbled an agreement and drifted back to sleep. By the time my eyes cracked open again, the afternoon sun was cutting a sharp, dusty line across my dorm room. It was 2 p.m. I reached for my phone, and the screen was already drowning in notifications from our sophomore class group chat. "Cassie, hey guys. Since the new Costco just opened up down the road, I figured some of you might not have had a chance to check it out. I'm going tomorrow. My treat, grab whatever you want." The replies were a cascade of sudden, sycophantic praise. "Cassie, since when are you a secret heiress? Wow, big spender." I stared at the screen, my brain struggling to connect the girl in those texts with the roommate I actually knew. Cassie's family was struggling deeply, so she was on the university's maximum financial aid package, and her daily life was a masterclass in aggressive survival. She worked long hours washing dishes at the campus dining hall, mostly because it paid a small stipend and, more importantly, came with free meals. Where on earth was she getting the money to host a wholesale shopping spree? Then a cold realization bloomed in the pit of my stomach. My card. Did she think the membership card was a preloaded gift card? Did she think my annual fee meant there was actual cash sitting on that little piece of plastic? The new Costco had opened near campus a few weeks ago, and it was all anyone could talk about. I'd gone out and bought an executive membership the very day it opened, not for any logical reason, really. I just had a massive craving for their bulk snacks. I'd always loved their giant tubs of peanut butter pretzels and the massive bakery muffins. But since there hadn't been a location near my hometown, my parents used to ship them to me in oversized cardboard boxes. Using my parents' shared account always felt slightly stifling, though. They could track every single transaction, every late-night run for chocolate-covered almonds. So I sucked it up, paid the annual fee myself, and walked out feeling a strange, adult sense of sweet independence. When I got back to the dorm, my roommates were sitting around the cramped common area debating whether it was worth the money to sign up. I threw my hands up in a grand, generous gesture. "Don't bother spending the cash. You guys can just use mine whenever you want." Everyone was there, including Cassie. The offer had hovered in the air, a casual piece of college camaraderie. And then came this morning. The sun wasn't even up when she shook my shoulder. "Cassie, what the hell?" I groaned, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. I've never been a morning person, and being jolted awake at dawn is a surefire way to ruin my mood. But she didn't seem to notice or care about my irritation. She stood over me, her hands clasped together. "Becca, can I borrow your Costco card?" My brain was still fogged with sleep. It took me a few seconds to even register what she was asking for. Seeing me hesitate, her face tightened and her voice took on a sharp, whiny edge. "You literally said we could all use it. I've never even been to one. Come on, Becca. Just do me a favor and let me borrow it." I shrugged it off. It wasn't a big deal. It was just a laminated pass to get through the sliding glass doors. And looking at her tense, expectant posture, I knew that if I said no, she'd probably stand there arguing until my Saturday morning was completely ruined. "Fine, it's on my desk. Just let me sleep." I let the heavy warmth of sleep pull me back under, completely missing the warning signs. When I finally woke up and saw the 99+ unread messages, my heart did a little flutter. I thought there had been some kind of campus emergency. I scrolled back to 9 a.m. Cassie had posted in the group chat inviting everyone on a trip to Costco. Some of the wealthier, more cynical kids had immediately started poking fun at her. "Why would we go with you to stare at the ceiling? Do you even know how expensive bulk shopping is? Honestly, I doubt you can even afford the parking." Cassie didn't back down. Instead, she dropped the bomb. "My treat, grab whatever you want." That shut them up. The teasing turned to immediate, desperate flattery. But I knew Cassie. I lived with her. Her monthly allowance from her parents was barely enough to cover laundry, let alone groceries. She survived on campus jobs, taking the worst shifts at the dining hall because it guaranteed her a hot meal she didn't have to pay for. Even if she somehow had a sudden windfall of cash, Cassie was not the type to share it. She was deeply, painfully frugal, except when it came to her own image. She had once taken out a high-interest point of sale loan just to buy a designer winter coat she couldn't afford just so she could wear it to lectures. When she ran out of money, she would casually borrow our food to survive. A splash of my oat milk here, a scoop of Leah's peanut butter there. Once or twice was fine, but over months, it became an exhausting tax on our patience. We tried gently bringing it up, but she just nodded. And then when she thought we weren't looking, rifle through our drawers. Anyway, she was fiercely protective of her own resources, yet entirely comfortable consuming ours. So why this sudden reckless generosity? Then the puzzle pieces clicked. She had heard me complaining about how expensive the membership fee was a few days ago. She must have thought the Costco card was a loaded debit card. She thought my annual fee was actual store credit. The idea was so absurd that if it were anyone else, I would have laughed it off. Cassie had grown up in an incredibly isolated, impoverished, rural town. Our academic advisor had once suddenly mentioned her background to us, asking us to be patient with her transition to college life. She truly might not understand how these wholesale clubs worked. Feeling a sudden knot of anxiety, I decided to call her. The first 2 calls rang out. On the third, just as I was about to hang up, she finally answered. The moment the line connected, a wave of hesitation hit me. How was I supposed to ask her this? Hey, do you realize you're broke? What if she actually did have the money? What if she'd saved up from her dining hall shifts to do something nice for her classmates? If I brought it up, I'd look like the elitist roommate making cruel assumptions based on her background. I didn't want to humiliate her. It's not that I looked down on her, but her methods of saving money were legendary. In our dorm, once we'd gone out for a group dinner, Cassie refused to order anything, sitting there with an empty plate watching us eat. Every time I reached for another slice of garlic bread, she would let out a loud, pointed cough. I didn't realize what she was doing until after we paid and left. She pretended she'd left her umbrella at the table, went back inside, and packed up all our leftovers. The next day, she reheated the food, packaged it into small containers, and sold it to the girls down the hall as homemade stir-fry. We were horrified when we found out, but she just beamed, completely immune to our lectures on hygiene and basic ethics, thrilled by her profit margin. That was just the tip of the iceberg. During her period, she would spend hours sitting in the communal bathroom stalls to avoid buying tampons. When we finally felt bad and gave her some of ours, she'd turn around and sell them to underclassmen for $1 apiece. She used AI-generated photos of damaged goods to get refunds on Amazon. She practically cleared out the dining hall supply of napkins and toilet paper every single week. I lived in constant fear that one day someone was going to lose their temper and physically confront her. Yet despite this desperate penny pinching, her vanity was boundless. She would starve herself for a week just to buy a knockoff handbag, all while maintaining an online persona of a wealthy girl simply experiencing the rustic charm of campus life. Because we never publicly called her out, most of our classmates still bought into the act. Hello, Becca, what do you want? International minutes are expensive, she snapped over the line. This call is on your dime, by the way. I opened my mouth, but the words caught in my throat. Never mind. I was just wondering when you'd be back late. Don't wait up. She hung up. She did come back late, just minutes before the dorm's midnight curfew. Before she arrived, Leah was sitting on her bed, venting her frustration. I thought college was supposed to be the best 4 years of my life. Leah muttered, throwing her hands in the air. Instead, I'm living with a literal psychopath. She doesn't listen to a word anyone says. I've told her 1,000 times, do not cook raw garlic and fish in the bedroom. My clean laundry smells like a cheap takeout place. How am I supposed to wear this to my internship interview? And she never washes her dishes. There are actual fruit flies hovering over her desk. Leah was practically vibrating with rage, trying to get all her anger out. Before Cassie walked through the door, Fiona and I nodded in silent solidarity. Our dorm didn't have a balcony, so the only place to dry our clothes was on a rack near the window, which happened to be right next to Cassie's bed. Save money on dining hall meals. Cassie had bought a cheap hot plate and cooked heavy, pungent meals right in the middle of our small room. The grease and smoke clung to everything we owned. We tried to negotiate shifting our beds around, but Cassie had shut it down immediately. No way. I like the sunlight here. It saves me money on vitamin D supplements, she'd said without a hint of irony. But if you guys want to swap so badly, you can just pay for my meal plan and buy my vitamins. Since we're roommates, I'll give you a discount. $300 a month? $300. It was absolute extortion. We had been left speechless, entirely powerless against her thick-skinned audacity. When the door clicked open and Cassie stepped in, we immediately fell silent. As she brushed past me, I remembered her planned excursion for the next day. I felt a sudden, annoying pang of conscience. I had to say something. "Hey, Cassie," I said, keeping my voice as gentle and non-confrontational as possible. "Just so you know, my Costco card is only to get you through the door. You can't use it to actually pay for the groceries at the register." If she already knew, it was just a harmless reminder. If she didn't, I was saving her from a massive public embarrassment. Instead, her face twisted in instant fury, cornering me by my desk and pointing a finger directly at my face. "What is that supposed to mean? Do you think I'm trying to steal your money?" she shrieked. "You're making up lies just to keep me from using it." I raised my hands, retreating slightly. "No, Cassie, you're misunderstanding. There's literally no money on that card. It's just an ID." Leah and Fiona jumped in to defend me, but Cassie was completely deaf to reason. You guys are just looking down on me," she yelled, her eyes flashing with a deep-seated, toxic insecurity. "If I had the kind of family money you guys have, I'd be doing way better than any of you. You called me earlier just to grill me about this, didn't you? It's a stupid plastic card, Becca. I can't believe you're being this petty. Get a life." I rolled my eyes, the last drops of my empathy evaporating. If I hadn't given her the secondary card on my account this morning, I wouldn't even be in this mess. Fine. Let her do whatever she wanted. I was done trying to protect her. Even if she did have some secret stash of money to pay for everyone, it wasn't my business. And if she didn't, my Costco account didn't have a line of credit attached to it anyway. She couldn't ruin my finances. I had tried to be a decent roommate. If she wanted to run headfirst into a brick wall of her own making, I wasn't going to stop her. The next morning, the class group chat exploded before I'd even gotten out of bed. Photos poured in. Shopping carts stacked with protein bars, cases of soda, giant plush blankets, rotisserie chickens, tubs of ice cream, electronics. Someone captioned a picture. "Cassie wasn't kidding. Queen behavior." Another wrote, "I grabbed an air fryer, and she didn't even blink." I frowned. An air fryer? There was no way. Either everyone was joking, or something had gone catastrophically wrong. Half an hour later, my phone rang. Cassie. I ignored it. She called again, and again. On the fifth call, I answered. "What?" For the first time since I'd met her, Cassie's voice sounded genuinely terrified. "Becca, they won't let me leave." I sat up. "What?" "They're saying I have to pay." "Yes," I said slowly. "That's generally how stores work. They said the membership doesn't cover the groceries." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Because it doesn't." "They're lying," she shouted. "They embarrass me in front of everyone." "No, Cassie. They're trying to scam me." "They are not scamming you." She was breathing hard. "The total says $12,400. Silence. Then I asked, "How many people did you bring?" 23. I nearly dropped my phone. "You invited 23 people?" They kept grabbing stuff. "Cassie, you literally told them your treat." I didn't think they'd actually listen. I laughed. I tried not to. I honestly tried. But the absurdity hit me all at once. "Cassie, this isn't funny," she screamed. "You promised we could use your membership." "I promised you could use my membership. I never promised to buy half the warehouse." "They're threatening to call security." "They're threatening to call security because you're refusing to pay. They should charge it to your account." "There is no account." "There has to be." "There isn't." "They said they explained memberships to me yesterday." "I wonder why." She went quiet. Then, can you come? No. Please? No. I'll pay you back. With what? Another long silence. Finally, she whispered, can you at least explain it to them? They already understand it. I mean, explain it to me. I stared at the ceiling. After 30 exhausting minutes, I finally convinced her that warehouse memberships weren't prepaid shopping cards. The line stayed silent. Then she asked the question that nearly made me choke. So, what did the annual fee actually buy? The privilege of spending your own money. That's the stupidest business model I've ever heard. I burst out laughing. An hour later, another message appeared in the group chat. Cassie had deleted every single "my treat" message. Then she posted, small misunderstanding. Everyone is responsible for their own purchases. The replies came instantly. Wait, what? You literally promised. I drove 40 minutes. I already filled 2 carts. So, you're not paying? Cassie answered with one sentence. I was misinformed by Costco staff. Someone immediately uploaded a screenshot of Costco's membership page explaining exactly how memberships worked. Another replied, they literally explain this when they hand you the card. Then someone else wrote, didn't Becca warn you yesterday? The chat fell silent for nearly a full minute. Finally, one classmate typed, she did, didn't she? Another answered, yeah. I was standing there. Cassie called her petty. The mood shifted instantly. People weren't laughing anymore. They were annoyed. Several classmates privately messaged me asking whether my membership had been involved. When I explained that it had only been used to enter the store and that everyone still had to pay for their own purchases, most of them apologized for assuming I had anything to do with the confusion. Cassie came back to the dorm late that evening without a single Costco bag. She didn't look at any of us. She quietly placed my membership card on my desk. I don't need it anymore. I picked it up. Thanks. That was all I said. The next morning, before anyone else woke up, I logged into my Costco account. I canceled the secondary membership card linked to my account, just in case. The dorm was unusually peaceful for about 3 days. Cassie barely spoke. She left before sunrise, came back after dark, and avoided making eye contact with anyone. I almost thought the Costco disaster had finally humbled her. I was wrong. Thursday afternoon, our resident assistant knocked on our door. Becca, the housing office wants to see you. My stomach dropped. What happened? They didn't tell me. When I arrived, the housing coordinator looked exhausted. She slid a printed complaint across the desk. My name was all over it. The complainant? Cassie. I started reading. According to her statement, I had intentionally sabotaged her reputation, publicly humiliated her because of her economic background, and loaned her a fraudulent membership card. I blinked. Fraudulent. The coordinator sighed. That's why we wanted to hear your side before doing anything. I pulled my wallet from my backpack and placed my Costco membership on the desk. It's real. Then I opened my Costco app, showing the active membership and the canceled secondary card. I even let her borrow it. The coordinator frowned. You canceled the second card? The day after she accused me of trying to steal from her. She nodded slowly. Reasonable. Then she asked the question I had secretly hoped someone in authority would ask. Did anyone witness the conversation where you explained how the membership worked? 3 roommates. And the class group chat. I handed over my phone. The coordinator scrolled silently. She stopped at one message. Didn't Becca warn you yesterday? Then another. Yeah. I was standing there. Cassie called her petty. She looked up. Well. A few minutes later, Leah and Fiona were called in separately. Neither knew what the other had said. Both told exactly the same story. By the end of the afternoon, the coordinator thanked us and dismissed us. We'll handle it. Cassie returned to the dorm that evening looking confident. She smiled when she saw me. So. I heard housing called you in. They did. I guess they finally realized what you've been doing. I simply looked at her. About 20 minutes later there was another knock. Cassie, it was the resident assistant again. The housing office needs to see you. Her smile widened. See, she whispered to me. They're probably making you apologize. She practically skipped down the hallway. She didn't come back for nearly 2 hours. When she finally returned, her face was white. Leah glanced up from her laptop. How'd it go? Cassie didn't answer. She walked straight to her desk and started stuffing things into a box. What are you doing? Fiona asked. My room is being changed. We all froze. What? The housing office said it would be better if I lived somewhere else. Later that night, RRA quietly explained what had happened. Housing had moved Cassie because she was poor. They moved her because they had received months' worth of complaints, not just from us, but from students across the dorm. The false complaint against me had prompted them to review the broader pattern, and the evidence painted a troubling picture. The Costco incident had simply been the final straw. By the weekend, Cassie's side of the room was empty. For the first time all semester, there was no smell of fish cooking at midnight. No stacks of dirty dishes. No arguments over borrowed food. The room felt quiet. Leah looked around, then laughed softly. I forgot our dorm had a window. We all looked toward it. Sunlight poured in. None of us said anything for a while. The silence itself felt like a luxury. A month later, finals arrived and life moved on. Our dorm settled into an easy rhythm that none of us realized we'd been missing. Food stopped mysteriously disappearing from the fridge. The sink stayed clean. Our clothes no longer smelled like fried fish. It was amazing how peaceful 4 roommates could be when no one was constantly waiting for the next argument. As for Cassie, we heard bits and pieces through the campus grapevine. She'd been assigned to another residence hall after agreeing to follow the university's roommate conduct policies. Whether she'd actually changed, none of us knew. We didn't wish her harm. We just genuinely hoped she'd learn that trust is much harder to earn than it is to lose. One afternoon, as I was walking back from class, someone called my name. Becca. I turned. It was Cassie. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she reached into her backpack and handed me an envelope. Inside was a brand new Costco membership card. I bought my own, she said quietly. Now I finally understand how it works. I couldn't help smiling. That's a good start. She gave an awkward laugh. I've made a lot of bad decisions. I didn't argue. She nodded once. I'm sorry for accusing you. You were trying to help me, and I turned you into the villain. It wasn't a dramatic movie apology. There were no tears or hugs. Just a simple acknowledgement of what had happened. Thank you, I said. I appreciate you saying that. She gave a small wave and walked away. That was the last real conversation we ever had. Sometimes people come into your life to become lifelong friends. Sometimes they're there to teach you where your boundaries should be. Cassie taught me that kindness without boundaries isn't generosity. It's permission to be taken advantage of. I still lend things to friends. I still try to give people the benefit of the doubt. But now I also know that no is a complete sentence, and protecting your own peace doesn't make you selfish. As for my Costco membership, I never handed it out again. If someone wanted to borrow it, I'd smile and say, sure, I'll come with you. It turned out that was the cheapest lesson my annual membership ever bought.